Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here, and to all of our simulcast locations, thank you as well for being in attendance at the 3rd Annual Leadership Panel on Diversity. This afternoon, we're going to embark on a discussion of our progress, talk about some of our challenges and some of the solutions around the diversity initiatives here at UCSF. This is an opportunity for our campus to come together with the leadership to discuss where we are relative to enhancing our celebration of our diversity, as well as to look at how we can improve upon what we've already accomplished. We want to thank the Chancellor and the Chancellor's Executive Committee for participating in this program this morning. I'm going to take an opportunity here to introduce both the presenters and the Chancellor's Executive Committee. During the program, we will go from one presentation to the next to allow for a sufficient amount of time for your questions to be addressed. I want to start with our Chancellor, Chancellor Susan Desmond-Hellmann. Can you just, everyone knows our Chancellor. Can we thank her for, she's here. Jeffrey Bluestone, our Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost. Patricia Calarco, our Dean for the Graduate Division. Joseph Castro, the Vice Provost for Student Academic Affairs and Special Assistant to the Chancellor. Kathleen Dracup, the Dean for the School of Nursing. John Featherstone, Dean, School of Dentistry. Sam Hawgood, Dean, School of Medicine. Marianne Cota-Kimball, the Dean for the School of Pharmacy. Sally Marshall, Vice Provost of Academic Affairs. Introduce to you Carol Moss, our Vice Chancellor for Development and Alumni Relations. John Plotz, our Senior Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. Sheila Antrim, the Chief Nursing and Patient Care Service Officer for the Medical Center. And we have Sharon Yeomans, also the Associate Dean of Diversity for the School of Pharmacy. Unfortunately, Elena Fuentes-Affleck, our Chair of the Academic Senate, could not be here, but we want to also thank the numerous sponsors who are participating in this event: the Office of Academic Diversity, the Chancellor's 5 diversity committees, the Office of Affirmative Action, Equal Opportunity and Diversity, the LGBT Resource Center, the Center for Gender Equity, and the Academic Senate as well. So the event like this, it would not be possible with all of those individuals, and the purpose of our being here today is to demonstrate what our commitment is to nurturing diversity at UCSF, to provide this forum for a campus discussion on diversity and to receive input from the campus community, and to demonstrate transparency and accountability on our leadership initiatives. Our diversity statement here is a part of that statement, a paragraph which talks of the defining feature of California, and it refers to the variety of personal experiences, values, and worldviews that arise from differences of culture and circumstance, including differences of race, ethnicity, gender, age, religion, language, abilities, disabilities, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, geographic region, and more. The university particularly acknowledges the need to remove barriers to the recruitment and retention and advancement of talented students, faculty, and staff from historically excluded populations who are still currently underrepresented within our communities. So it's with that intent that we move with humility in our discussions. We discussed the principles of our community, and this is available on our website. It's too much for us to read here, but it talks about our primary missions of teaching, research, and patient care and public service, and how we do those things to achieve them, we have to work collaboratively, we have to work with mutual respect, and we really have to celebrate and appreciate the differences that we bring to the table. So with that as our backdrop, I want to take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Hellmann, who assumed the role of our Chancellor in August of 2009, so now just 8 months into her position. She was recently named by Forbes as one of the world's most powerful innovators for her curiosity, empathy, and her leadership. We're so pleased to have her here leading us. Since our founding in 1873, she's the first woman Chancellor. Please join me in welcoming our Chancellor, Dr. Hellmann.
Thanks a lot, Renee, and thank you particularly for your leadership in diversity. It's greatly appreciated by me and everyone else. Welcome, everyone who's here and who's joining us remotely. I am really pleased to be here with you today. Those of you who have heard me talk about my top 5 priorities know how important diversity is. It's a critical part of the people part of my focus, and I believe, as was evidenced by one of the slides you just saw from Renee, that UCSF is going to be a great place to be if we have the kind of diversity that allows everyone to feel welcome and supported and bring out their best, no matter who they are and what their background is. I was very much reminded of this fact recently when I attended the UC Regents meeting in March, and I wanted to tell all of you how awful it was to sit for 3 hours and hear about the recent racial incidents that had happened at 3 of the UC campuses. It was startling that in 2010 we would even need to have such a discussion, but it was an important discussion, and as a relative newcomer, I very much appreciated being able to participate in that meeting. The Regents heard from the chancellors at Irvine, San Diego, and Davis, and from UC Berkeley Law School Dean Christopher Edley, and students about a series of incidents that have happened recently on campuses that truly are deplorable. I think Dean Edley said it best. He said, "This isn't rocket science. This is harder than rocket science." And that resonated for me. When you sit there and you say, how could such things happen? First of all, I think that I and colleagues share the feeling that this isn't reflective of who we are or who UC wants to be. But when any one incident happens, what was most compelling for me is to hear students talk about either being afraid or uncomfortable because of these incidents. So I want you all to know how much it's important for us to have an environment, a campus that is not just one that brings out the best in people, but also takes into account the bigger world, and that sometimes hateful things do occur, and that we need to be vigilant in thinking about the kind of campus we want to be and never let our guard down on that. I also wanted to let you know that I've gotten some feedback on the Operational Excellence Project, the efficiency measures that we're taking and thinking about on campus. And the specific feedback I've received is some concerns that there not be any adverse impact on all of our collective efforts on diversity on campus. And so in the panel discussion and before the panel, you're going to hear from Mike Tyberski, and I've asked him specifically to address that adverse impact concern that's come up, because I really take that seriously and want you to know that it's something that my senior team and I have talked about already in terms of what we need to do to make sure that we don't make any backsliding on diversity efforts on campus. And then finally, I wanted to make sure on the things that have been on my mind in terms of thinking about diversity. As I've selected members of my own team, my own direct reports, people have given me feedback about the diversity of my team and my reports, and I take that very seriously. So I wanted to tell you 2 things. One is that I'm really pleased to tell you that now I have 2 additional direct reports who are female. Both Barbara French and Carol Moss report directly to me, and I think it's important in terms of how we think about diversity that is true. The loss of Gene Washington was a huge loss to our campus on the diversity front. I think Gene's, not only who he is, but his leadership on diversity was so important for our campus. And I know that he's going to make a big contribution at UCLA and is very important at the UC campus wide. So I think that one of the things I want you to know as I selected members of my team is I've made sure that the selection groups, the search committees, have been made of diverse individuals. I've reached out to people on campus and outside of campus to try and seek out additional talent that's diverse, which I think is really important to do. And I have made sure that I'm aware of things like the AAMC report on unconscious bias are known to me and members of my team. I don't think that we can do enough ever to think about how we make sure that our campus is diverse and that we have really the best talent for every job, that excellence and diversity are part of who we are. And I wanted you to know how seriously I take that commitment. Happily, I've also been able to participate in a number of events on campus since being chancellor that have really resonated for me in terms of who we are. And these events have included the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Awards that were given out in January, something that was really a wonderful experience. And among the people who were sitting here, Joe Castro was one of the recipients of those awards this year. And let's clap for Joe. I will tell you, both at that event and at the Advancement of Women Awards that were given out the 22nd of March, one of the best things for me is to hear from members of our campus who were celebrating, hear their experiences and what they've brought and why they were nominated for these awards. So congratulations, Joe, and to all the people who have really been recognized on our campus for their efforts in diversity. I also was able to participate in the honorary degree ceremony for Japanese Americans, one of my favorite events since I've joined the campus, something that really was absolutely important in remedying past wrongs that had gone on. And before he left, EVCP, then now Dean Washington, put together a group for me to help give me some insight and see the various efforts that are going on our campus on diversity. And all of these have been really valuable experiences for me. And maybe the most fun was the Black Caucus Gala, so that I could get all gussied up along with colleagues and celebrate with the Black Caucus. So please continue to invite me to events. I really enjoy them, and it gives me a sense of the richness of the diversity on our campus and helps me to participate in celebrating that. And finally, I wanted to mention that I've asked Associate Dean Bobby Barron, as chair of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee on Academic Diversity, to give me some additional input on diversity. And a report is due from this Chancellor's Advisory Committee by July 30th of this year. So I very much look forward to Associate Dean Barron's input and feedback, as well as the members of that committee. And I want to thank all of them for their service on this important advisory committee. So I will stop talking because we've got a lot of wonderful speakers for this event, but thank you all for coming, and thank you to all of my colleagues for all of your leadership in diversity on campus. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Mike Tyberski. I'm the Director of Human Resources, and I'm talking today about staff diversity. And so let me start with one of our staff value proposition, which is we have an opportunity through improving diversity, improving our climate, and committing to professional development to grow, retain talented, committed, and a diverse workforce so that we can sustain our excellence. That is something that we began many, many years ago, but was renewed in 2007. Then Senior Vice Chancellor Barkley was charged by Chancellor Bishop and Executive Vice Chancellor Provost Gene Washington with coming up with some specific initiatives. And he engaged Michael Adams from the Affirmative Action, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity Group, as well as Alma Cisco Smith and myself, to come up with 14 specific initiatives that really take these concepts and put them into very actionable activities. And so I'm going to speak to 2 of those today, but following this presentation, all of those will be updated and posted to the diversity website, along with information about our 2006 versus 2010 parity goals, and I'll talk a little bit about that next year. So in 2006, you'll see from the slides here, first let me first frame this, which is underutilization. So part of diversity we already talked about, which is the very broad concept of diversity. But in addition to that, as a federal contractor, UCSF is obligated to maintain an affirmative action plan. And in that plan, we have obligations to report every year how well we're doing relative to these categories of diversity. And this has been going on for many, many years. So this is a snapshot of 2006 versus 2010. And it essentially tells us that if we are at full parity, which means that we have an organization that is representative of the community in which we recruit and retain staff, all of these bars would be at 0. We would be fully utilized. We would have just as many minorities and women in the workforce as there were available to fulfill these positions. So taking women, for example, which is the first category, in 2006, this chart indicates that we had 247 fewer women in the organization than was available for us to have in the organization in our representative workforce. In 2010, we're at 244. We've made essentially very little progress overall. And the rest of these charts you can see, in some areas we've lost ground, and in other areas we've made some relative progress. So this is just an unfortunate fact that we haven't gotten better and we haven't moved further than we have so far. But when we talk about a couple of very practical things that we're doing, that we started and really started taking off last year. So where we make progress in these different categories is really at a very practical level, which is the way to change our availability, the way to change our workforce is when we have an opportunity. So that means when we post a job, what are we doing at that moment in time to ensure that we're considering, we're recruiting, we're conducting what's called good faith efforts to move us closer to diversity. So good faith efforts include things such as recruiting a diverse pool. So going out and finding where you need people, where you can find them, what kind of advertising you might do, how you might have a diverse interview panel, ensuring that the panel of people making the selection decisions reflect the diversity that we're trying to represent. So a couple of very practical things happened last year. One is the way managers know whether or not they have an affirmative action goal is typically it's been through the affirmative action plan. It comes out once a year. There's a sheet that explains whether or not goals exist for an organization. One of the things we've done to enhance that is that document typically was old and it stayed pretty much stable through the year as you got it. So one of the things we did is we created a electronic tool that pulls information from an employee, from a department. It pulls in the affirmative action data, and every time a job is posted, we can tell a manager at that point in time if they have an affirmative action goals and what they might be, and then we provide them a set of tools on how they can go out and actually recruit and find diverse candidates to fill their jobs. So it's a very just-in-time tool. It's very practical. It reminds managers at the point in time that they have an opportunity to make a change and to affect change, that there's an obligation for them to do so, and that there's tools and resources and staff available to assist them. The other thing we did is we started documenting who's actually conducting good faith efforts. So we've asked managers when they have a job opportunity, we tell them what a good faith effort is, we explain to them, we provide them resources, and then we ask them when they fill their job, what exactly did you do towards conducting good faith efforts? What kind of outreach did you do? Which organizations did you contact? Did you post this? Did you have a diverse interview panel? So again, giving managers very practical tools on how to make a difference, how to actually change the composition of the workforce to improve what we just saw in those charts. The other way we're working towards improved diversity is through professional development. In professional development, we're in our second year of a leadership development program that, again, was launched after our last presentation, or after our start of these initiatives in 2007, we identified the need that the medical center had a diverse leadership program, but the campus did not. So we launched it. We're in our second year, and I can tell you that that program is reflective of the workforce that we have to pull from. So it reflects a very diverse candidate pool to ensure that we're not just developing people today to be very effective, but we're also developing our future senior leaders. And so this program is one way that we're actually helping to do that. The other thing is we've relaunched our supervisory development program, and we're working with supervisors to help them build the skills on how do they help their employees become more effective at what they do. How do they help them with professional development? How do they help them perform their jobs more effectively? How do managers know what they're supposed to do to help the workforce become more developed? Because development is a key element in having employees move through the organization into higher level jobs. We know from data from before, and this will be on the slides on the diversity website, is that we're a very diverse organization, UCSF, at lower levels of the organization. We become less diverse as we move up through the organization. So the more we can develop staff at all levels of the organization, the better opportunity we will have to have a diverse organization throughout, instead of just in some sectors. And then the last thing is staff development. We launched a professional development website. It's already had 5,000 visitors, and it's a self-directed site that allows employees to go on and really assess where are they today, what do they want to do, what kind of skills do they need, and it provides them some resources and tools that they can affect on their own, as well as take to their supervisor and sit down when they have performance evaluations and say, here's some things I'd like to do, here's some opportunities that I'd like to work with you on to get opportunities to move up in the organization. So all of those help us to ensure that staff are being developed and that we can move them through the organization to help us improve diversity. The other point the Chancellor asked me to speak to is adverse impact. So as we know that there's a lot of discussion about organizational changes going on and what are we doing and how might that affect all the diversity efforts we've made so far. So there is a couple of things going on. One is that we are working with departments that are creating new organizations. And if it's a new organization that doesn't currently exist, we are working with the Affirmative Action Office to identify what are their affirmative action goals, give that information to them, spend time helping them with good faith efforts, ensuring that as they go to fill their jobs, they're doing it with an eye towards helping to address affirmative action goals and diversity. Secondly, as we're looking at potential downsize, potential fewer positions, people being laid off, before we're actually affecting any layoffs, we'll be conducting adverse impact analysis. And it's a way to assess, before decisions are made, is there some kind of a disproportionate impact on one population, one part of the organization? Is it affecting some group more than the other groups? And if it is, it's our opportunity before we take any action to go back and relook at what decisions did we make, why did we make those decisions, are they the right decisions, did we make the right selection process, and do we have the right selection process, and did we do everything fairly? And so it's our opportunity to assess and to ensure that we're not moving forward with decisions that could have an adverse impact without understanding why that's happening, and to ensure that it's been done fairly. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sheila Antrim. I'm the Executive Director of Patient Care Services, Chief Nursing Officer in the Medical Center. Obviously, diversity is a important thing for me standing up here, and I think the key thing is, at the end of the day, when numbers and data and statistics go away, it's really about asking everyone in this room and elsewhere to take a chance on people who are not like us, and I think that's why I'm probably standing here today. So what's our at the Medical Center, what's our diversity objectives? And I think it's to create a culture where diversity is at the core of the organization. So it's in our DNA. It's to attract and retain a workforce committed to cross-cultural acceptance and collaboration. And I can't stress this second point enough. As I said to Mark last week before when we were talking about this, we can never be complacent, because I think complacency breeds those kinds of things that happened at the other UC campuses. And then I think it's to implement programs that align with the medical center values with a focus on diversity. So I'm going to talk about 3 examples of this and how we're looking at the future, how we align with our patients in terms of quality, and then how we help in terms of staff. So this is our demographics and our breakdown in terms of diversity at the medical center. So if you can take a minute to see where things line out, you see that we still are pretty much predominantly majority, but working through different cultures. So I think that's something to be impressed about. But for entry-level employees, I think it's very interesting as well. And I think that entry-level employees, we have a chance to really match that culture and match sort of enculturation of what we're trying to achieve. And so one program that was launched in 2008 was the School at Work program. So staff at work are here at school. 14 employees between 2008 were enrolled in this program. We had 9 graduates, 4 of them went on to community college, and there's still 5 within UCSF Medical Center that are in their current positions, but also looking at school as well. And I think that for the medical center, it's always about outcomes, and I think this is where outcomes and investment have to be in what we do. The second part of this is around patients and staff, and I think that our quality goals this year were aligned very clearly, but I think that patients and staff in terms of demographics and diversity is very interesting. So if you look at the makeup of our medical center and patient population with our staff population, varies, but still it's important to note. And so from that, we are launching a culture vision. It's a web-based resource program to enhance staff cultural competencies with the objectives to guide patient care providers on providing culturally appropriate care, increase patient compliance and reduce health disparities, and increase patient satisfaction. And I think everyone can understand why those objectives are important in healthcare reform, why they're important in terms of frustration, lack of frustration in terms of staffing, and how that comes together in bonding in terms of that patient-staff engagement. And finally, the future, and this is the one I actually am so excited about just because I met the principal of this high school and I just love students. And so Philip and Sala Burton Academic High School in the city of San Francisco, we're going to partner with them in terms of working with their graduates or working with their students. It's a high school that's in the southeast sector of San Francisco, and the objectives are really to engage these students from underrepresented populations in healthcare careers and develop a pipeline of diverse healthcare professionals for the future of the medical center here. What's important, what I learned in growing up and actually working through diversity efforts, is that you always have to have someone as a mentor to pull you through. Whatever the color is doesn't really matter, but that person is the person that really guides and helps you. And so I'm curious as we take this first cohort what these folks will look like, but more importantly, 5 years from now, what they will give back in terms of the students at that high school going forward and how they'll reappear in the healthcare sector. So this is a snapshot of Burton High School, and as you can see, predominantly Latino, African American, Chinese, and Filipino. And I think that from that, again, an engaged group of students, an engaged principal, engaged group of medical center directors, that 15 of us who will be guiding these students through this process. So very important in terms of these outcomes. And that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila and Mike, for the snapshot on the staff diversity initiatives. And now, Joe Castro and I will give you a snapshot about academic diversity, a bit of an update on where we are relative to the 10-point initiative that Chancellor Bishop developed in 2007 as a guide for looking at our work in diversity. And the first was to implement a comprehensive communications program and to launch a diversity webpage. And Lisa Cisnero has really led the effort in developing and launching our website, which has been very well received by the campus. It's a culmination of all of our efforts and serves as a resource to the entire campus community. One of the wonderful defining features of it is this voices in which members of our community can tell their story, and it's really profound, as the Chancellor alluded to, hearing individuals talk about about how their various aspects of diversity has impacted upon them and upon their career. So the website has been launched, our brochures, and efforts to increasingly tell the stories of the diverse members of our community. We established a faculty database also for conducting faculty searches. Similarly to the staff side, looking at the diversity of our pool of candidates for any open position, understanding where we had affirmative action goals, where we are underutilizing women, underrepresented minorities, and other minorities, and utilizing efforts to increase the diversity of our pool so that we can yield the most diverse candidates within each of our searches. And this has been a wonderful tool and a central part of our best practices for faculty searches. The Academic Affairs website, we've developed a checklist for search committee chairs to utilize, and the database is central to that, as is just direct communication with us on how to search for diverse candidates, where do you advertise your positions. We've rewritten the language in each of our search ads to make sure that individuals understand that we're seeking individuals who will contribute to our diverse campus climate within our searches. Our plan for staff recruitment, Mike has discussed, and our program for promoting diversity among our trainees is still under development. The graduate medical education group under the leadership of Bobby Barron and Renee Salazar has developed some significant outreach and underrepresented and mentoring programs to both increase our pool of candidates as well as create a sense of community on campus among our trainees. One of the things we've identified as we've been looking across the spectrum is that, in fact, we've primed our own pipeline relative to the work we're doing on outreach and students and trainees, but those transitions to faculty positions, I think we need to focus a little bit of attention on that development. How do we nurture our internal pipeline as well as spend time on our external outreach efforts? And so we'll continue to work on that. Proposals on accountability and incentives include this leadership panel today. Each of the deans from each of the schools in the graduate division prepare an annual report on what's happening under their leadership around diversity. Accountability and the process for hiring is now being looked at, as well as our promotions process. I was recruited as the academic diversity position in the fall of 2007. In our outreach activities, we are still working to improve the coordination. We had a subcommittee that Joe Castro chaired that looked at the campus-wide activities, and we have over 200 different programs that are operated out of 40 different offices on campus now. So we have extensive amounts of outreach taking place, but we want to bring that in and sort of centralize it, perhaps coordinate it better, measure our outcomes, identify really where we should be putting our limited dollars for efficiency's sake, and that is still ongoing. The subcommittee task force that the Chancellor mentioned is looking at that and how we can be more efficient in some of those activities. School-specific plans, I alluded to each of the schools in the graduate division have developed those plans, and from the strategic planning process, calling for us to provide more active recruitment, which we are doing, as well as improving the diversity of our senior leadership and enhancing the culture of our campus across the entire campus. Some of the other activities on campus nurturing diversity include our celebrations and our attempts to educate our campus community around issues. The Chancellor's Awards are great celebrations, our Voices videos, the Champions of Diversity, as well as photo and essay contests focusing on an individual's interpretation of what diversity means to them. We have affirmative action best practices luncheon that we do on an annual basis, and we have a first generation group that is led out of Student Academic Affairs. In addition, around the education piece, there's a lot of training going on as a part of orientation for all of our new students to campus, and training of our mentors through the CTSI Mentoring Development Program, training mentors how to mentor across differences, and what are some of the potential biases that we all have inherently, and understanding those things and learning how to work with a variety of communities. We have some cultural competency training, cultural humility training on campus, as well as unconscious bias training for all of us. In addition, our outreach activities, as I alluded to, have been enhanced and coordinated. Each of the schools has individuals working on diversity efforts, and we come together and maximize our outreach so that we can, share resources around doing outreach across the health science spectrum, actively recruiting, looking for placing our advertisements in publications, et cetera, that are likely to reach diverse candidates. Focusing on our retention and development, we have the Coro Leadership Program, which has enjoyed participation of the entire spectrum of the academic community, and our promotions process, which has similarly been looked at and has we've educated our campus community and not found any disparities in promotion for women or underrepresented groups there as well. On the accountability front around the academic search process, looking specifically at the pool of candidates that are brought in for any particular search, and does that pool of candidates match the national availability pool? And if not, we help them identify additional places to seek out applicants for various academic positions, the school plans, and then our academic advancement process. So where are we demographically? If we look at the numbers on campus, this is data from our academic demographic system as of March 2010, where our faculty, there are 2,299 faculty on campus, and you can see the distribution here. Women are between 38% of our faculty in the School of Dentistry and 88% of our faculty in the School of Nursing. We have very few units where there's underrepresentation of women. There's some underutilization in the School of Medicine relative to women. And then if we were to break this out and look at the distribution across academic series, we see that women still have a majority in the non-Senate academic series, and we're looking at that. When we break it down further, looking at our trends over the last 3 years, you can see that we've had the growth in the female faculty, now 44% of our faculty overall, and that the success has not been shared by members of minority communities. We have 6. We've stayed stable. We've not lost Native American. Our Asian faculty population has increased compared to 2008, but we did see a decrease over the last academic year. And our similarly Black faculty, 48, 73 Hispanic faculty on campus. So we have a significant underutilization among African American faculty as well as Hispanic faculty, and that is essentially across all of the schools here. And that's visible here as well. When you look at the numbers of individuals distributed by the school, you can recognize how it's important that we build a campus community that is an inclusive culture so that people are not feeling isolated in their individual arenas. Similarly, as we talk about diversity, it too must be inclusive and look at the groups that are not as visually visible sometimes, but similarly underrepresented. And when we look at the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community, a study of the staff in 2008, employee survey, showed us that 13% of our campus identify and 9% of the medical center identify as being a member of this community. We are very proud of the fact that there have been a lot of accomplishments on our campus, and we really lead the nation in a lot of ways around the work that's being done here at UCSF. I have to say, I spent a lot of time with the AAMC, and Shane Snowden's work is quoted often, and I appreciate the work that she has done specifically in running the LGBT Resource Center. But we'll held our second health forum on LGBT issues. The medical center is a star, 100% on the healthcare equity quality index. And we've presented last year the first Health Disparities Forum here, and the School of Dentistry has developed a gay-straight alliance, and we will be hosting in the fall the nation's first summit on LGBT issues in medical education. So we're really leading the nation. This community, however, reports that there are still issues for them, and we will be working to make sure that our campus community is inclusive there as well. Similarly, there have been accomplishments for the disabled within our community, and as we've made some major investments in improving the accessibility of our facilities as well as the services that we provide. We've also implemented programmatic and policy changes that will facilitate our being able to provide for the reasonable accommodations that individuals need so that they may be successful and thrive within our environment as well. The Chancellor's Advisory Committee on Disabilities Issues has been instrumental in designing and launching a resource, which is a very rich website with all the resources related to disability. You can find it here, and it's linked to our overall diversity website as well. Some of the solutions we have to think about how we can sustain and have sustained leadership, be vocal about our commitment and steadfast in our resolve. We have to have accountability at all levels of our campus community, and we have to continue to nurture our pipeline. Both our internal pipeline, we have the most diverse student body in many of our schools that the state has seen. So how do we utilize what we've worked on at that level to nurture that through the pipeline of our graduate medical education and perhaps onto our faculty as well? And with that, I will end and we'll have questions at the end. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I get to bat cleanup today. It's fitting given that it's baseball season. It's actually opening day at Dodger Stadium. Don't hold that against me. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today about the diversity of our student body and a few important initiatives that exemplify these efforts. And I want to build from the excellent presentation that Renee made, and also Sheila's work at Burton intersects, given that that's part of a larger UCSF, San Francisco Unified School District partnership. UCSF has been at the forefront of addressing health care disparities and community health needs while promoting diversity and inclusion among our students, trainees, staff, and faculty. And I want to begin today by sharing with you some campus-wide data for our students and trainees. Let's see. Might need you to give me a hand here. Okay, that's what I want to start with. Okay, so I want to start with the diversity of our student body from a racial and ethnic perspective. And what you'll see is that the good news, despite significant fee increases, we've been able to sustain our diversity and even increase it in a few areas. But it's not mind-blowing, right? I mean, this is, we're not achieving at the high level that we're capable of. And so the good news is that we have not fallen back and that we have made some progress, but there is much more that we can do. You'll see we have a slight increase in Hispanic students. The other category is actually going to go away next year, we think, because of changes in the way that data is collected. And so we'll see those numbers in the other categories change next year. Go to the second slide. Let's see. From a gender perspective, as others have noted, we've made tremendous progress in this area, and so what you'll see is that we're doing quite well in the student area for the most part, and we're more diverse earlier in the pipeline than later. And so there is more work that we can do there, but that's, I think, part of the very good news that I have to share with you today. I want to turn my attention to a few programmatic efforts that have shown promise in increasing the diversity of our own student body here at UCSF and have contributed to the diversity of other institutions. In 2010-11, the schools of dentistry, medicine, and pharmacy, with funding from the California Endowment, will offer a comprehensive post-baccalaureate program in partnership with UC Berkeley Extension. Some of you may know that we've been working with San Francisco State University for many years, and we have been, because of the budget situation, had trouble getting the courses that our students needed at San Francisco State. So the exciting thing is that we now have a partnership with UC Berkeley, and our students are going to be able to get access to the courses that they need to be successful in this program. And pharmacy is joining this effort along with dentistry and medicine, and nursing and physical therapy. Others are certainly welcome as we move forward in the future. So this is good news. We've had a track record of success in this area, and we'll continue with that. And I want to thank several of the folks who've been part of the committee, some of whom are here to make this happen. Inside UCSF is another success story that many of you have been part of, and that's coming up again on April 23rd and 24th. And I think, Dean Clarko, you're doing welcoming remarks. Thank you for agreeing to do that for this group. This is a free event for undergraduate students that gives them an in-depth introduction to a specific health science career path, a chance to meet our current students, and to become inspired about future career possibilities. And this is an initiative that's been funded by the Chancellor's office and strongly supported by the Chancellor's academic diversity and diversity committees. The schools of dentistry, medicine, nursing, pharmacy, and the graduate students have invited students interested in these different fields to attend this annual two-day outreach program. And like the first example, this is interprofessional across the campus. I think it's really another excellent model for when we work together, we can make great progress. From 2005 to 2008, past participants have gone to places like Harvard, Dartmouth, Wisconsin, San Diego, Vermont, and the University of Pacific. Several have been admitted here, and we hope that over time we're going to see more and more coming to UCSF and getting their degrees here at UCSF. As Sheila alluded to about the Burton High School partnership, that's part of an overall partnership between UCSF and San Francisco Unified School District. And there are 4 schools in a pathway that includes 2 elementary schools, 1 blended elementary middle school, and 1 high school, Burton High School. And the partnership focuses on college preparation, clinical focus on wellness, which has been very important for those students who experience severe trauma where they live often, and also the teachers in trying to support them. And then finally, a science education focus that builds off of the work of the SET program. And that's recently Chancellor Desmond-Hellmann and Superintendent Garcia met and reaffirmed their support for the partnership, and I appreciate that, Chancellor. We've got very strong support from the district and a co-funding model so that the district and the university are sharing in the expenses of this partnership. And I wanted to also mention that it's inspired in part by the Doctors Academy at Fresno, and our own Dr. Catherine Flores just got an award from the Irvine Foundation, and I wanted to mention that and congratulate her on her excellent work with the Doctors Academy. finally, a couple of slides that I hope will make you smile, because this is really good news. We've been invited to host the 3rd annual conference of Native American professionals, and we expect several hundred participants from all over California to be here. And then finally, I was mentioning to a friend of mine who serves as the education advisor for Speaker John Perez. His name's Max Espinoza. I was mentioning to him that the Greenlining Institute really likes UCSF. And he said, boy, that's so rare for the Greenlining to say anything really positive about anybody, because they play a really important role of challenging everybody and saying, you know, you're not doing well enough here, you're not doing well enough there. Well, just as a way of celebrating the progress here, this is a third-party point of view, an outside point of view about what we're doing. And while we know there's a great deal of work yet to be done, I just wanted to take this moment with you to celebrate this statement of progress, that we are in fact going in the right direction, and we want to go even faster, and I think we can in the coming days and weeks and months with the leadership of the Chancellor. Thank you. And I'd like to invite the leadership to come to the front, and there's going to be a Q&A period, right? Perfect. Okay.
There are wonderful courses available to staff on the medical center side. Some of them are free, nursing and administration, all kinds of low-cost or free courses available for staff development. When will we take down the barrier to the campus side so that our staff who want to develop themselves further will have access to these tremendously wonderful courses on the medical center side?
Who wants to join in with take that question?
I guess I'm the medical center, huh? You know, I think this is this is actually a very good question, and I think the whole silo notion is one that is very interesting. Kathy and I, as well as Marianne, I think we're doing all we can to break down silos every day related to nursing, pharmacy, medicine in that regard. So I think the question of who and when and what coming for classes is one we're happy to entertain. So I think if you can talk to me afterwards and we can work on that, be happy to.
Excellent, thank you. Yes, a question down here? Wait for the mic so that our satellite sites can hear the questions as well.
Good afternoon. Hi. Oh, I don't know if I really need this. I'm a loud voice. My name is Adebisi. I'm a first-year nursing student. And my question to you is, I applaud this work with diversity, but my question is about retention. And the reason why I ask this is because I am actually a mentor at Burton High right now. And a lot of the students are like me, where we didn't have this exposure to science right now, and you know, we kind of struggled along the way but got there. So my question is, this is to all the schools, pharmacy, dentistry, everybody, what programs are available to address retention needs right now? And also, are they like student focused also? You know, if maybe like have maybe mentors from year before. I know we have the MEP and Buddy program. So I was just wondering what are available at other schools, and how do you guys also target these students who might need additional help? Thank you.
Joe, can you take that question?
Sure. I'll be happy to start, and my friends might want to chime in. Thank you for that question. That's very important. And I think the first thing I'd say is that over the last couple of years, we've, as a campus, have invested more in student services. And so there are many programs that are now in place. And when we did the inventory last year, we found that there were 100+ different programs that could be categorized as retention. There may be an issue in terms of making sure that students know where to go. And that's something that you know, we'll work harder to address, and I'd love to follow up with you. But most recently, an example of what we've done to help address this area is to create a new position that works on learning skills. And that person, Terry Smith, who's just extraordinary, has been visited by hundreds of students. And I know she's making a big difference, and we're assessing that to see whether additional services are needed. But that's one example of an investment where we've tried to address that need, and there are lots of others. Maybe I'll see if anybody else wants to add.
Yeah, our attitude is that every single seat that is filled by a student is a precious one. We expect everybody to finish. And so we closely monitor the progress of our students. As soon as we see the first signal, if they don't come to us, we ask them to come in. And often it's not just academic, it's environmental, it's family issues, financial, need to be at home. So we have funds that are available, we have tutors, we modify the curriculum, we do everything, we will move heaven and earth to keep every student in that seat because we can't fill it. And so we have a small enough program that we can monitor our students actively.
Yes, same.
I would agree with what Marianne has just said, but perhaps take a slightly different slant to your question to expand the implication, and that is how do we retain across the silos as we go. So we've put a lot of attention in the School of Medicine to priming the pipe to diversify our medical student class, but what we're really struggling with is a significant drop-off then into the graduate medical education, fellowship and faculty. And so we are paying a lot of attention to that in the last couple of years, and for the first time are beginning to collect data as to what is happening to our pipeline that is not succeeding as we thought it might. And we hope we'll get some real data. But what we're finding is that the acceptance or the application rate and acceptance rate of our underrepresented students into our own residency programs drops off dramatically, and we've really got to understand that and work hard on that. So we're not just retaining within a silo, but we're passing and using that pipeline to advantage, to address, as I think Mike mentioned in the staff, that there's a drop-off as we get to the higher levels.
Yes, Amy.
At the risk of some shameless self-promotion for the Center for Gender Equity, I apologize. If I could have a shill in the audience do it for me, I would. But this past weekend, we just sponsored a program called the UC Diversity Pipeline Initiative, where we got women of color students from all of the UC health science programs to come and attend a leadership program where we encourage them to become faculty and to become our own academics. And so it's kind of a grow your own program, and we have data for the past 3 years that shows the impact of this program. So we're trying to increase diversity among faculty by working with our students across all schools, including public health, optometry, vet med, nursing medicine, dentistry, pharmacy. We also do programs for faculty and staff that increase retention. We have a turnaround mentorship program that Majiza Sanchez coordinates to mentor both women and men in the administrative series at UC and encourage upward mobility. We do the Women's Leadership Symposium to do training on leadership for women across all of the UC campuses and the labs. We have a professional development women of color network for staff and for faculty here at UCSF. We do professional development trainings for women faculty in general. So we do all kinds of things that we hope and are now measuring to increase retention and recruitment as well of particularly women of color, but across all ethnicities and men as well. So there you go.
Thank you. Question over here to the left and then over there. Yes.
Hi, my name is Sandy Kinchola. I'm part of the Native American Health Alliance and also the Council of Minority Organizations. This question is in regards to the Native American recruitment, retention. One of the things that I've said over the years, and it's appropriate again, is that when students are applying for medical school or any of the schools, you have a certain amount of Native Americans, and if they come to the university and they don't know any of us are here, it's kind of, they don't really feel wanted. And this isn't so much a question as I'm just letting you know, since you're all there, that if there's any way that we can help, if someone comes here for an interview and you can partner them up with someone from the Native American Health Alliance, we're always willing to do that. And this year I have heard that for the medical students, usually they're given the names of the people so we can partner up with them. This year it wasn't allowed for some reason. Maybe that's a mistake, maybe we just didn't get passed by, maybe there's a change. But if there is a change, I'd like to know why that is, and possibly change that. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. That's a valuable comment, and it is a sense of community that the students get when they come to the campus, and it feels very welcoming. And we will look into that and see how we can't make that happen for you, for all of our professional schools in the graduate division, make that resource available to our candidates.
I would like to build off your comment, because there is a registered campus organization called the MGSO, the Minority Graduate Student Organization, and that has been quite an effective participant in the recruiting efforts of the graduate programs, and I know exactly what you mean. It creates from the start, during the recruiting aspect of it, a more welcoming environment, and then afterwards many of them stay involved with the activities that the MGSO sponsors.
Other questions right behind you?
Hi, I'm David Booth. I'm a third-year biophysics student. I'm actually a member of MGSO, who Patricia has talked about. And one of the problems that we're seeing, especially as there are more discussions and the Chancellor's panel on diversity and our members who are going to it, one of the problems that we're running into is there's not much of a centralized and institutionalized way to really fund our organizations to the level that we need them to be funded. And furthermore, with over 200 organizations, Joe Castro mentioned this, it's kind of fragmented and haphazard at some point, where we can't really coordinate with each other, and we're not being able to really make the best cohesive effort on the student level. So what initiatives is the university putting in so that we have more integration across these organizations, and that even us in the graduate division, who are sometimes at the outside, can be incorporated into the rest of the campus community and really benefit from things that medical students and dental students and the other students get?
Maybe I can comment on that, Renee. Thanks for that comment and question. I've had a lot of input since starting as Chancellor on two fronts. One is the point you just made, that we have so many efforts on diversity across UCSF that if you're new, it can be hard to figure out where to go. And many people are asking the question, are we getting as much bang for our buck as we should by having so many separate groups? There are other people who say, boy, that adds many new voices and many disparate voices in a positive way across our campus. The other comment, I've received a lot of feedback, and it gets a little bit to this question of a place to go. I saw several heads nodding when you said that, is whether we need a physical office of diversity, particularly for students, but for anyone who wants a place to go. I have to say, because we're so spread out across the city, that where that place should be is going to be another source of discussion. So as I mentioned, there's a Chancellor's Advisory Committee that owes me a report anytime soon, and I'm specific. Where's Bobby? And because I'm new, and because I really value that kind of large number of voices on these issues, I'm very much looking forward to their input on these two areas in particular. Anything you want to say, and the committee wants to give me for feedback, but particularly these two areas, because in particular from students, I've heard central office, physical office, and some way to make sense of the multiple different efforts on our campus. So I hear you, and I'm looking forward to getting some good advice on that.
Yes. Yeah, right behind you there.
Thank you. I have two kind of related questions. We talked a lot today about statistics and making a good faith effort, so I was wondering what percentage of diverse candidates for positions actually get the job?
It's a great
Not all at
question.
once.
Which jobs? Yeah, are you talking staff, faculty?
Staff, faculty, students, whatever. So you can throw out statistics for any one of those.
Well, I don't have the data here, but that's certainly something with the academic demographic system. For the first time, we're able to see what our pool looks like relative to the diversity of the availability pool is. And as a part of that analysis, we're getting to the point where we can actually get the data on, did we have a diverse pool? And of those who were felt to be qualified, was there a woman or a minority hired for a particular job, and if not, what were the reasons why they weren't? So we're getting to that data on the academic side, but we don't have it to report yet. We've looked at it in the last year, but we don't have it to report, but we can get you some of that information now on the academic side.
I'm sure by you mean the entire campus community.
Absolutely.
And maybe speaking on behalf of others. So then my related question is, good faith notwithstanding, what are the repercussions for not, making up to the levels that we should be? Because we've talked a lot about developing, coordinating, data, but I also see that, each of the 3 years at these talks, we're also saying, we aren't where we want to be. And I don't see any repercussions for not being where we want to be. Again, not all at once.
I just make a comment from a student perspective on that last question. In the School of Dentistry this year, we had 11% of our applicants were underrepresented minorities, and we offered places to 19%, almost double, and we've got 17% underrepresented minorities this year. And that's in our DDS student program. So it's almost double the applicant pool.
I do have the data on graduate student admissions for several years, and it's rather interesting because we get fewer applications from persons of color, underrepresented minorities, but the take rate is about 50%. Of those that come through the system and are accepted by the program, whereas it's under 10% for the majority students. So I think there's a positive will. I mean, it's clear these are highly qualified students that are coming our way, and we lose them to the very top institutions. But it's been interesting to see that difference in acceptance.
I think from a very big picture perspective, not from one of the schools, I can tell you that President Udhoff will include diversity in my performance evaluation. So, that would be a bottom line.
Yes, Dr. Hogan.
I would just like to add to that. Each of the leaders on the campus, on the academic side, are held to a 5-year stewardship review, and the performance of their particular unit in diversity is a significant factor in that review. There are not, concrete numbers and goals, but clearly a lack of progress is culled out in that review, and in the discussion of the review, a clear, accountable plan has to be established. So this is slow work, but I think your question was really about accountability and how we're going to achieve that. So in so much as Sue said, and she's holding each of her reports to the same issue, and that has trickled down.
Yeah, no, and I just think that that's such an important thing, accountability, but also it is separately there are, and Michael, you might want to comment on an affirmative action EEOC. There is also, see, I do actually know the rules, Michael, that there are reports. Do you want to comment on that? Did I say it for you, or you want to say it? There are rules, and yeah.
Thank you for that easy lead. The speaker raised a very important measurement question. I know that's one of the Chancellor's values. The federal government also is interested in this because we are a federal contractor. one of the biggest in the country, and comes with that the obligation to measure along the lines of the question. So I want to encourage that UCSF does measure annually. The Chancellor signs an affirmative action plan every year. In that plan is a discussion not only of the hard data, the numbers, but the plans going forward to overcome the underutilization that you saw in some of the charts. And it includes, and Mike can confirm this, it includes an applicant tracking adverse impact report, which every dean has available, and that report addresses the gap between the probability of success of underutilized applicants in achieving the final job versus the actual performance of that process, if that makes sense. And so we're able to deliver to ourselves an adverse impact report, address that report with further good faith and maybe a little more aggressive good faith efforts. So I just want to encourage the speaker that there is a program and process in place, and that's available to anyone, actually. We can be contacted, and we'll refer them to Chancellor or whoever, but it's a very robust part of the process, getting down to actual measurement of results. Results is kind of a hard word in this diversity environment, but it's one that this campus has embraced, and the Chancellor certainly supports.
Thank you. Yes, a question there on the right side, and then here, yes.
Yes, my name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm with the United Public Workers for Action. I'm very concerned that the audience, or the panel really, have not addressed the issue of the massive increases in fees for students and the budget cuts, which are going to have a devastating effect on the university system. We're talking about a radical restructuring of the university, which was alluded to, but no one's addressed that. It seems to me it's an emergency situation for this public institution and other University of California campuses, because particularly working class students, poor working class Black and Latino students, aren't going to be able to come here, and large numbers of working class working people at the university are going to be having to be discharged as a result of these budget cuts. So there doesn't seem to be the urgency here about what the university is going to do about that. That requires a restructuring, I believe, of the financial support for the university, but it's not being addressed here. And thousands of workers are going to be laid off here throughout the state, and it's going to have a radical impact on the education system here that we have. There doesn't seem to be that kind of emergency to challenge the legislature, to challenge the people of California, to address that about the destruction of the university system. And secondly, there have been terminations of 2 Black union representatives of UPTE at UC Santa Cruz and Lawrence Livermore by the university system, the management. There are very few to begin with of Black professional employees here, and they've been retaliated against. And I wanted you to know to address that. Retaliation of Black union activists at the University of California. But I'm very concerned that there seems to be a business as usual approach to what's going on in the California public education system and the University of California for the future of it. Thank you.
Someone want to address his concerns? Joe, on the student front around the...
Joe, maybe you could make some comments in terms of the student fees specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that comment. The student fee increase has had an effect, of course, on the ability for us to recruit and retain the most talented and diverse students. And we do have data indicating that there has been some beginnings of an erosion of competitiveness. And so there is urgency, and actually this Chancellor has approved the establishment of the first fundraising campaign for student aid in the history of UCSF. And that just happened in January. And so there is urgency there, and with the leadership of Vice Chancellor Moss, she and I and her team are working now on a plan that will, I believe, bring in substantial support. The deans are all committed to that, and so that's going to be one very concrete way for us to deal with that challenge. In the short term, we've also been working feverishly to change the student health insurance plan, which it appears when we're successful in doing that in the next few weeks, it will reduce fees for our students to the point where it could wash out the entire education fee increase for this fall. So I wanted to give you that example in terms of urgency and trying to make sure that from a cost standpoint, we're addressing that issue. From a fundraising standpoint, trying to increase the amount of assistance that we provide to students. And then on the support side, in terms of the services, trying to make sure that even in this environment that we provide adequate support so that our students can succeed and go out there and become the next generation of leaders.
Can I add to that from a student point of view? In the School of Dentistry, we have taken immediate steps this year in terms of encouraging lower socioeconomic disadvantaged students to come to us with success. We've taken our scholarship funding that we've got from past endowments, bequests, and what have you, and we've moved that into more scholarships for fewer people. I've also rolled out this year a new Dean Scholarship for Opportunity. In the School of Dentistry, we've rolled out 2 of these, which is a very substantial sum of money over 4 years for 2 students, coming from bequests and diverting the money from discretionary funds into that scholarship fund and mobilizing the alumni where we've raised enough money for 2 further major scholarships in that area, with the result that we've actually attracted more underrepresented minorities this year than we have in many years, in spite of the fee increases.
I know you addressed in your question some larger issues system-wide. I don't think this is necessarily the best panel to address that. Perhaps we could follow up. I can tell you just from myself, I've been to Sacramento, but downtown here, met with a number of folks and wrote an op-ed for the Chronicle that I hope someday they'll actually publish on the importance of funding higher education in the state of California. But that's a broader issue than maybe this panel is ready to address your system-wide issue. And I want to make sure we address a lot of questions, but I'd be happy to follow up with you.
Thank you. Yes, here.
I'd just like to respond. Sorry, I'm Dean School of Nursing, and I'm very concerned about all of the issues you say. Nursing has traditionally been a profession where people move from lower or lower middle class into the health professions. And so these changes in the University of California, I'm a graduate of UC, and only was able to get graduate degrees because of the wonderful state system at the time, which, as you've said, is being eroded. So we certainly, as a campus, I mean, if you say there's not a sense of urgency, there hasn't been a day in the last 3 years that I, as a dean, have not been thinking about the budget, meeting about the budget with this group, talking with my staff, with my students about what this means for them and how we can best organize to meet these challenges. So I think there's a tremendous sense of urgency that we try to balance with some ability to communicate that as administrators and leaders, we are concerned and we're doing the best we can to try and meet changes in the state budget. Just going to Sacramento is not necessarily going to give us any checks to deal with the solutions. But I think the second issue is one that I discovered early in my deanship. I was touring and just beginning to think about diversity issues as an academic leader. I was touring a friend of the family, a woman who had happened to be born in Mexico through UCLA, not through UCSF. And I was telling her about the library and the dormitories and what I knew about a campus that I was quite familiar with at the time. And it was interesting. She met a friend of hers from high school, and she said, "Is this a good place to be a Latina?" And that question resonated so much for me. And I think that's what this campus has to address. Is this a good place to be, whatever the X is? And I think that that's what, you know, the good faith efforts of our leaders are really trying to do. So yes, absolutely, this is a catastrophic budget time in California, but that doesn't mean that we can't keep our eye on being a good place to be, whether that's staff or faculty or student. Thank you.
I want to raise the issue of the representation of minority women in institutions such as UCSF at a senior management level and beyond. A report recently came out by the Fawcett Society named Lifts and Ladders Resolving Minority Women's Exclusion from Power. And it conveyed that the representation, the lack of representation of minority women at significant levels, senior management and above, excludes the interest of getting minority women into work. And it also, furthermore, it showed that institutions perceive that the lack of minority women in the higher echelons of society is due to their own deficiencies. It's perceived that they have a lack of talent or skill or ambition. And this is clearly not the case. And I'm going to quote directly from the report because it affects us in the following way. So some of the summary findings were minority women are more likely to be qualified to a higher level than white female or minority males employed in the same positions. And yet they're more likely to be underpaid, less likely to be promoted, and twice as likely to be unemployed than a white woman. They're also less likely to be employed at senior positions. And they're also 3 times more likely to live below the poverty line. Some of the summaries, I'm just going to give 2 lines. The exclusion of minority women from power entrenches these problems so their experience, needs, voices, and priorities continue to receive inadequate attention. Minority women, myself included, often work, we complete degrees, and we support our families financially. And this is a merit. This is a merit that the universities don't pick up or the employers don't pick up. And it's a skill. It's a phenomenal ability to be able to juggle a number of life skills and to be able to deliver. And this is not getting picked up and it's not being acknowledged. It's a skill that's also reflected in the top, in our physician scientists, to be able to juggle many priorities and to be delivering at the same time. So I'm wondering if the university acknowledges this fact and what they're doing to further the cause of this disparity and inequality that exists.
Great question. Someone want to tackle that question? Sheila?
You know, if I can just speak on the medical center side and just in general, I'll talk about my experience. And I think partly it's that, because when you get to this level, it's a very lonely job. And part of it is, I think, for today, most women, I wonder if they really want to be even managers or directors. I think the ability to juggle, as you've expressed, is something that I think that people, when they look at the end of the day what we go through, tend to walk the other way. So a perfect example is I just hired an associate chief nursing officer, and through the recruitment, found no one that looked like me, so sent the search firm back out to find someone. But I think that when you look at people who are my friends who graduated, you know, I graduated from a predominantly black institution at Hampton Institute, and when we talk and we discuss these kinds of things, I think the notion of weighing what happens at this level, the relationships that you don't or do have, because at UCSF, as someone said, this is the most relationship-based place ever, and it is based on relationships. And the ability not to sell your soul weighs very heavily at this point, and I too think about this quite often. So I think to your point, I'm not quite sure where all that means, but I think that at the end of the day, for at least women who want to aspire to be at these levels, there's a cost, and it's whether or not you want to take that cost and run with it for the benefit of patients or students or staff, or whether at the end of the day you sort of say not quite at this time and come back to it at another point. Does that make sense?
Within the higher echelons. I mean, I wonder if there's certain barriers, systemic barriers within the framework that we work in to get to the top.
You know, I think that the answer is yes. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't say that that wasn't the case. I think, again, as I said earlier today, someone has to take a chance and move you along in terms of realizing this and getting you through and navigating through that process. And so I think that to people who can do that, myself included, you can get there. And I think that those who think that that's not the case, I think that is. But barriers, yes, but it's whether or not you individually can also navigate through those barriers. And I think that a lot of people can and a lot of people can't.
Sally?
Can I just add one thing to, sorry, Sally. I just wanted to add really quick that the role of mentors, I think, is essential. And one of the programs that I think is very good at UCSF is the mentorship program. There's the 1-minute mentor cards. There are a lot of tips and tools. And I think to Sheila's point, this can seem to people very lonely as they move up, very frightening. And mentorship is an excellent thing to tap into on this campus that I think can be very helpful. Sorry, Sally, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay. I wanted to speak to it from the faculty perspective. In 2001 and 2002, Chancellor Bishop commissioned a survey on the climate for faculty, and it was aimed at women, not at minority women, but primarily at women. And the outcome of that was the establishment of the Chancellor's Council on Faculty Life, and the things that we were charged with include one of the findings of that survey was that women felt there weren't enough leadership opportunities or training for leadership. And one of the things that we've done is we've established a leadership program with the Coro Center for Civic Leadership in San Francisco. And from the beginning of that program, women and minorities have been significantly overrepresented versus the population of our faculty. And the goal of that program, from my perspective, is to train leaders for UCSF. That this is our pipeline of leaders for UCSF. So I think that program is being very successful in training the people. Time will tell how far they rise in the hierarchy at UCSF. And another component of that CCFL program is the mentoring program that the Chancellor just alluded to. So it doesn't speak specifically to minority women, but it was definitely aimed at helping women.
Yes, one last question, Elizabeth? Or I don't know who was waiting first. Dorothy? That's.
Mine is just about the pipeline issue that you spoke about earlier, and just it's partially a comment and partially a question. I'm an RACTA Scholar in Science Fellow from the Graduate Division, a postdoc, and I know that particular fellowship program is designed to increase the number of minorities in actual academic teaching positions. Hopefully at UC, I think, is the goal, but throughout the educational system. And I know we're still in the beginning, so we don't know how successful it quite is yet, but we're hoping we're going to be successful. And I just wanted to know what's being done in the other different silos to do similar things, because I do think that the pipeline issue, having been in science now for a while, I think that it dramatically falls off, as was commented earlier, at my stage. And being at my stage now, it's very tempting to drop off, because it's not, I'd love to say that academia is a immensely rewarding career, but as I churn and look to my left and my right and look at different people that pursue that, it's a tremendously difficult career, and not one that I definitely want to pursue it still, so don't worry, Pat. But it is nerve-wracking at this point to be in this situation, especially with the current economy, and see that there are other opportunities that do allow me to support my family more and do allow me to have a little bit more freedom in my life. And so I think that this is a particular stage where you can have a huge intervention and a huge success rate if there's resources. So I just want to know what's being done in other areas, if that's
I want to address that, Sam?
I won't go into detail, but I've already alluded to the issue that we are concerned about that drop-off, and in this specific case, going from medical student to resident here at UCSF. But I think that we have examples that suggest that with adequate attention, you can be successful. So within the School of Medicine, the Department of Medicine has now for 4 or 5 years under Renee Salazar's leadership put really concerted effort into improving that pipeline effect, and they have numeric success in that issue. So we're rolling out a number of the specific interventions that they did and piloted in the Department of Medicine across the School of Medicine, and we'll see how successful we can be. I think it sort of dovetails with the issue of the economic climate. It makes people think harder, in particular in terms of retention in academics. And that needs to be obviously one of our outcomes, but I think we also need to take a fairly broad view of what we consider success here in terms of what our graduates are doing. Retention in the traditional cloning ourselves is one measure of that success, but I think taking a broad view of what we consider success and what the mission of our programs here at UCSF are will give us a different lens on looking at how successful we are in the societal perspective.
Thank you very much. I want to say to those who submitted questions online, we didn't get to those questions here today, but we will send answers. We will make sure that the leadership sees them and addresses your questions with answers. You can, if you have some additional questions, you can always submit them to the academic diversity email address that was sent in the announcement, and we will get back to you. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all very much for participating in this afternoon's discussion. It would not have been possible without our leadership, obviously, and those who sponsored this event. I want to thank all of the Chancellor's committees, the Office of Academic Diversity, the Office of Affirmative Action and Equal Opportunity, the Academic Senate, the Center of Gender Equity. Hopefully I have an LGBT Resource Center. It takes a campus community effort to bring this together and to have these discussions. I think it's responsibility of all of us on the diversity front. So I thank you for your time and attention, and to Misty Lauderly, the Coordinator of Academic Diversity, I thank you very much for pulling it all together. So thanks.